Yes, this is John G. Sutton. Thank you very much for watching this Tales from the Jails. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about notorious prisoners. That's prisoners who are famous or infamous, for various reasons. The first one I want to talk about is the former Postmaster General, who was a prisoner at Wormwood Scrubs when I was there. He was there in 1976, and he was John Stonehouse, the former Privy Councillor, member of the Labour government, and the last Postmaster General. It's a little known fact that before John Stonehouse was the Postmaster General, there was only one form of postage stamp, to send a standard letter. It was John Stonehouse that introduced the second class stamp. Now, when you think about it, just think about it a little bit. If you've got two forms of stamps, that means that you've got to check the envelope to see what level of stamp it's got on, yeah? Now, if it's got a first class stamp, then it gets supposedly expedited. Are you with me? Speeded up. Except how do you do that? There's only one way to do it, and that's to interfere, that's to slow down the second class mail. Because you can't speed up one set of mail and slow down. It was basically a way of Stonehouse introducing a rise in the cost of postage, cost of a postage stamp, without actually holding his hand up and saying, we're increasing the cost of postage stamps. Yeah. So we've now got stuck with this second class stamp, which is perfectly adequate. It will get you there. But that's thanks to John Stonehouse, as I say. And he was a prisoner at Wormwood Scrubs. Now, whilst he was located on A Wing, and while he was on A Wing, for some unknown reason, the governor of A Wing, because each wing had a governor, the governor of A Wing used to play chess with him at lunchtime, because John Stonehouse was apparently quite proficient at playing chess. And so the governor would have him unlocked and playing chess with him in the wing office at lunchtime. Somewhat getting some kind of favourable treatment there, wouldn't you say? And he was required to work in one of the workshops. They put little things together on it, was screwing plugs up or something like that. And Stonehouse objected to the fact that on the radio that was playing in the unit, the work unit where they were playing Radio 1 pop music, and he objected to that, said that it gave him a headache, that he couldn't possibly function during that, and he insisted that if they were going to play the radio, then they should play Radio 3, which is, as most people will know, the classical music channel. And you can imagine how that would go down in a workshop at the Scrubs. But apparently Stonehouse got his way. He also used to receive visits from his lover. I've forgotten her name now, but she was associated with him during his period of criminality. And for those of you who don't know exactly what John Stonehouse did, he opened a bank. He was extremely well connected. He opened a bank, a savings bank in London, and persuaded people to deposit their money, which he then emptied, took all the money out, and did a supposed disappearing act, where he took all the money and went to America and left all his clothing, or clothing that purported to be his clothing, on the beach in Miami, one of the beaches in Miami. And it was reported that he'd been lost at sea. He'd been lost while swimming in the sea, you know, which he obviously hadn't. And he'd managed to get himself out of America to Australia, where he was, he'd got all his money, of course, but he was hiding up in Australia. And it was during the time that the Lord Lucan went missing. His nanny, or the lady that did the housekeeping and the nanny work for Lord Lucan, was found murdered in his apartment in, I think it was Kensington in London. And there was a search, an international search for Lord Lucan. And of course, somebody in Australia thought that this mysterious guy who was in their locality, which was in actual fact John Stonehouse, they thought that he was Lord Lucan. So they reported it to the police. The police went to it, and they found that it wasn't. Indeed, it was not Lord Lucan, but it was John Stonehouse. And Stonehouse had gone missing, presumed dead. Yeah, because he'd left his clothes on the beach at Miami. And anyway, cut a long story short, he was arrested, taken to the Old Bailey, found guilty of various nefarious offences, purloining people's money, and banged up in the Scrubs. And the lady that used to visit him in the Scrubs, she was with him in Australia as well. She used to come in a big, like a mink coat, yeah. And they used to arrange for Stonehouse to see her separate. I don't know how he'd managed to do this, but somebody had worked with him to do this, so they managed to. And he used to see this lady privately, and she had this long, big mink coat on, but underneath it, nothing. She was stark bollock naked underneath that. And she used to service John Stonehouse in the visiting room at Wormwood Scrubs. Seriously. I don't know how he got away with that. Somebody must have been on the receiving end there. Bit of corruption, but anyway, he ended up having a heart attack because he had heart problems, you know. And I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again as we're discussing notorious inmates. And he ended up in Hammersmith Hospital, which is on Duquesne Road, next to the Scrubs, by the way. The prison's on the left, go forward about 200 yards, and on the left-hand side, there is Hammersmith Hospital set back. He was in Hammersmith Hospital, and I happened to be the officer in charge of that particular watch, because prisoners who are in the NHS NHS hospitals are attended by a prison officer because they remain in the custody of the Crown. You know, they're in prison. They're still serving imprisonment despite being unwell. So I was sat next to his bed. I didn't cuff him up. I let him just lie in his bed because he was obviously ill. And we got to about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I started at 6, and I was working the 6-2 shift. Yeah, so I started at about 10 o'clock in the morning. He said to me, "Officer, we'll go and get my bottle of Lucasade and a copy of the Times." He said, "It's on order at the canteen." I said, "I think you made a mistake here, you know." I said, "I'm the prison officer and you're the prisoner." I said, "You stay in bed and be the prisoner, and I'll stay here and be the prison officer." And we were very amused by that, you know, because he was used to people doing what he instructed them to do, you know, which is an entitlement kind of thing. I mean, I don't know if you ever come across these people, but when they give you their instructions, they really absolutely do expect you to follow their instructions. Unfortunately, I was not of a mind so to do. And you'd have thought he'd have left it at that, but no, he had a little bell at the side of his bed if he was feeling unwell. He rang this alarm breast at your electric thing. And the ward's sister came across, and he had a word with her. And she said to me, "Officer, will you go and get Mr. Stonehouse's copy of the Times and his bottle of Lucasade?" I said, "You're the nursing ward sister, yeah?" She said, "Indeed I am." I said, "Well, for your advice, I am the prison officer in charge of this production from Wormwood Scrubs. If you'll get about doing your work as a nursing ward sister, I'll continue to do my job as a prison officer. And if you attempt to interfere with this Home Office production again, I will have you arrested. Now get about your duties." And you would have thought, anybody, I mean, she's obviously being obnoxious. Otherwise, I wouldn't have responded in such a forthright manner, shall we say. You would have thought that would be the end of that. I mean, I'm doing my job, making sure this prisoner, John Stonehouse, ex-Privy Councillor, former member of the Labour government, was not escaping from prison, from custody. It would be about 11 o'clock, maybe half an hour after I'd given her this friendly advice, shall we say. And another prison officer arrived from Wormwood Scrubs, and he said, "Mr. Sutton," said, I'm here to relieve you of your duty." He said, "You to report back to the prison and see the chief officer. He wants to see you." "Oh," I said, "does he?" Well, I recognised the man anyway, so he was a prison officer. It wasn't a set-up, So I said, "Right, okay." I said, "But don't go running any errands for this guy. He's the prisoner. You're the prison officer." So I went back into the prison and went in to see the chief officer, and he was got one of these aggressive kind of faces on, "Right, Mr. Sutton, I want to tell you to tell me what you've been doing at the hospital, Hammersmith Hospital. What have you been doing? We've received a complaint from the nursing sister." I said, "Did the prisoner escape?" "That's not the point." I said, "No, did he escape?" "No, he didn't." I said, "So what do you want to see me for?" I said, "My job was to make sure the prisoner didn't escape. You didn't send me there as his butler. You didn't send me there to dance round the nursing staff or the ward sister. I was sent there by this prison to make sure that that prisoner remained in custody. And he remained in custody. So what are you trying to say to me? Get out of my office. Get out." And that was the end of that. I mean, the obvious belligerent old ignoramus didn't know what his job was. Our job's not to go running after inmates, serving on them hand and foot, getting them, I don't know, Lucasade and copies of the Times. As far as I'm concerned, if you start asking me that, the answer has got to be no. Anyway, we'll talk some more about infamous inmates at another time. That's enough for today. This is Tales from the Jails, and read my book, Psychic Screw. It's all in there. On Amazon, by the way. Thank you very much.